Greeting to all my banker friends from across the globe. I am Kannan. I'm the chairman of the advisory board of Basel Practitioners. Now, Basel Practitioners, where we strive to demystify the Basel guidelines to bankers from across the globe. Our webinar partners, JMR Infotech, which was established in 2007, has been dealing in core banking and other risk solutions offering for the financial industry and has over 150 completed assignments across the globe. Now, Basel Practitioners, along with JMR, is bringing you this third in the long knowledge series of webinars that we have lined up. Both our organizations work together as convenience enablers by bringing in persons with hands-on experience on complex matters that concern bankers. Today, we shall be focusing on compliance, that is, leveraging technology to meet the compliance goals. But of course, compliance is a vast subject, and we shall be particularly focusing on AML compliance and how having an appropriate technology can help us achieve the goals. The broad coverage will be the regulatory implications, managing AML and risk, emerging technologies, developing scenario models for detection. Now, irrespective of the jurisdiction in which we operate, banks and financial institutions must put in place an AML compliance program in order to detect and prevent not only money laundering but also terrorism financing activities and ensure regulatory obligations. However, achieving AML compliance in banking is a challenging process. Banks must ensure that they collect the appropriate information from customers, screen transactions on an ongoing basis, and if necessary, report suspicious activity to the financial authorities. Banks must also be alert to the ever changing criminal methodologies that may override their AML programs and challenge their compliance function. Now, in any bank, the compliance department is the body responsible for ensuring the institution as a whole remains compliant. Its goal is to ensure that the bank functions within regulation, preserving its integrity and reputation in the industry. Now, failure to comply with AML guidelines may lead to reputational risk, operational risk, and also legal risk. Non-compliance to AML guidelines may also attract severe penalties from the regulator, affecting the very foundation of the bank. All the banks and financial institutions have anti-money laundering and economic sanctions processes in place for quite some time. But many still lack the integrated, risk-based, and cost-effective AML solutions, which the managements of the banks always look for and what the regulators desire. So we thought it fit to bring in the experts to talk to you. Our efforts today is to get you started on your own journey to a more secure and compliant organization. I have the pleasure of introducing Mr. Suresha Iyer, who has over 4 decades of industry experience with special focus on risk and compliance and have been implementing solutions across global banks. He is also the first Indian to be certified by ACAMS, the American Institute. Who else is better to talk to you on these matters. So we have chosen Mr. Suresha Iyer. The format which we will be following is, for convenience purposes, we shall be putting all the participants on mute. But if you have any questions as and when the presentation is going on, we welcome you to put it in the chat box. At the end of the presentation, the Q&A session will be open. At that time, all the participants will be able to participate and converse also with the panel members. So I request all of you to take advantage of the knowledge series which we have brought in. And now I welcome Mr. Suresha Iyer and hand over the session to him. Mr. Suresha.
Thank you, sir. So once again, a very warm welcome to all the participants. Today we have a global, participant from across the globe. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on the location where you are. And as Mr. Kannan very rightly mentioned, JMR and BPPL together, we are trying to bring this knowledge sharing series essentially to help our fellow bankers in adopting some of the global best practices in their risk and compliance journey. So with that brief introduction, let me the plan I have is to give a quick brief overview on what is AML all about, essentially to help our fellow bankers who are coming mainly from the risk area, and then move to the technology part as to how technology would help, various tools, how it would help in addressing the AML risks, which are one of the very important aspects which banks need to address. So when it comes to money laundering, the reality today is we know only tip of the iceberg. So the reason why I'm making this statement is, there are large number of money laundering cases that happen all the time, despite various regulatory guidance, and despite banks establishing huge compliance team, investing, millions of dollars in implementing technology solutions. It is virtually a race between banks and money launderers in the race of one-upmanship. Each one is trying to outdo the other, while money launderers are trying to find ways to go around the current, various regulatory guidance. Banks are also trying to learn quickly and adopt, technology tools to counter the same. So essentially, while we know only tip of the iceberg, effort is on to enlarge our knowledge pool and knowledge base so that we catch up with the entire money laundering thing that is happening. So when it comes to money laundering, there are three phases. Just to give a brief intro, it is generation of dirty money through illegal activity, which leads to laundering of money. So there are three phases in the entire money laundering program. One is placement of ill-gotten wealth into banking system, which is of deep concern to most of you bankers. So it is not just placement. What money launderers do, they layer the ill-gotten wealth in a way it becomes very difficult to find the source. Then they go to the next step of integrating this into the banking system so that it becomes a perfect legal money in the hands of money launderers, while exposing bankers to the risk of allowing these type of transactions happening in their books. According to a study, over $2 trillion worth of transactions keep happening all the time. And today, the technology spent from banks and financial institutions has crossed $260 billion, essentially to build defenses against this challenge of money laundering. So let us understand how it concerns banks and financial institutions. See, today, non-compliance is not an option at all. There is a saying, either comply or perish. It is as simple as that. The reason is the penalties are huge and severe, and regulators do not take kindly. And they may go to the extent of even closing the banks which are not adherent to various money laundering regulations. So ignoring red flags is not an option to the banks. Hence, today banks are spending a lot of time, energy, and money in establishing a proper processes, proper systems in place so that they are able to address this risk quite effectively. So as Mr. Kannan very rightly mentioned, failure to comply with AML guidelines may lead to following types of risks. It can lead to reputation risk. The very foundation of banking system is on the reputation it enjoys with the customers. So that would be at stake. Then we have operational risk, legal risk, concentration risk. Quite a few types of risks banks get exposed if they don't fail to take the right steps in combating the menace of money laundering. Today, total fines paid by institutions across the globe, according to one study, is in excess of US $345 billion. It's a huge, huge number. So banks are today cautious, and today it is highly appreciated by banks that this prevention of money laundering is not just the task of the compliance team of the banks. It is everyone's responsibility, and even the boards of banks are taking very active role in ensuring that they are adhering to various guidelines, both national and global, so that bank is safe, the reputation is intact. So let us look at what are the products. Virtually every product bank deals with has possibilities and loopholes which money launderers can try to exploit. Especially in cash-based economies, the chances are much, much higher. That is the reason why today, many of the central banks across the globe are encouraging their public to use digital transactions. The reason being, always a digital transaction leaves a footprint, and to an extent one can track. So cash transactions, wire transfer, correspondent banking, ATMs, dealings in securities, insurance products, options and futures, and the list is endless. Today, what banks are doing, they are trying to have, whenever a new product is to be launched, they ensure that the same is reviewed by the compliance team as well from a money laundering perspective. Is there any gaps which money launderers can exploit, or how they can build defenses against possible money laundering? So why are we worried so much? It's a good question, right? So let us look at global drivers. It is not just your own country regulators. Today, the awareness is across the globe, whether it is Somalia, Nigeria, Kenya, US, Europe, wherever you go, every banker is quite concerned. The reason being, the driving force is very clear. Deter the money laundering, detect and prevent. This slogan is really catching up well across the globe. If you look at the global institutions that are in play, we have the UN special resolutions very specifically focusing on deterring money laundering. Then we have got IMF recommendations, which are very clear to ensure that before funding, they want to ensure that the countries are adhering to these AML requirements. We have Financial Action Task Force, which is one of the apex bodies in fighting against this menace. As I mentioned earlier, like the way in which Basel is synonym with credit risk, market risk, operational risk, when it comes to AML and KYC, it is a Financial Action Task Force. I would like to share some similarities here. So the Basel Committee, right from 1984, they have been issuing series of recommendations, which are in turn being dictated by the local regulators, making banks adhere to these things. I find similarity with FATF, which was established in 1989 and 90. They also came with series of recommendations, starting from 40 recommendations in 93, 40 plus 9 in 2003, and again further modifications in 2018, 2019, 2020. So what this FATF is doing is, in line with the changing, the global landscape of customer behavior, they are introducing and modifying newer regulations. Just to give a couple of examples, prior to 2000, there was not much mention on countering financing of terrorism, or CTF, popularly known as CTF. Post 9/11, FATF came with a series of recommendations to address this aspect as well. Then in the last few years, looking at the huge amount of money laundering that is happening in the area of trade deals, like in the trade finance transactions, according to one study, more than 80% of money laundering activities today are happening through the trade route, where import-export transactions are conveniently used by money launderers to hide what they are trying to achieve. So FATF has come with a series of recommendations to address that particular gap as well. So these recommendations, individual countries have their own recommendations, like Prevention of Money Laundering Act in India, the Patriot Act in US, European Union directives. Other interesting thing is from Wolfsburg Group. It is a grouping of 11 very large global banks like Citibank, HSBC, Barclays. They have all come together. It is more like a self-regulatory body which has come up with a series of recommendations, especially targeting addressing of money laundering risks in the area of private banking. As all of you know, every bank wants to launch private banking offering because that is one of the most remunerative and profitable business to handle. But that exposes huge gaps from money laundering perspective. That's where Wolfsburg Group has come with its set of recommendations. Finally, we have our well-known Basel Committee. While FATF and other regulators are focusing more from the transaction monitoring perspective, Basel Committee's recommendations are around two key areas. One is more from the KYC area, where they expect banks to deal with customers whom they know. But today's world, we deal with a lot of unknown customers because of the digitization of the entire economy that is happening at a rapid pace. So Basel Committee's recommendations are more around KYC, and other interesting approach is on adopting of risk-based approach. Because today, if you go to any bank, the number of transactions, number of customers is not in just hundreds. It is in thousands and millions. How do you see all the transactions, all the customers, all the time? Virtually, it is humanly impossible. That's where technology steps in to address that huge challenge. While technology can do certain things, technology can show huge amount of results through its algorithms, running algorithms and behavior detection processes. But these results need to be reviewed. How do you review? That's where Basel Committee says, adopt a risk-based approach so that you are able to address the high-risk cases, high-risk customers on a priority over low-risk customers. Incidentally, this risk-based approach is recommended by Financial Action Task Force as well. So let us briefly look at what are the challenges that are impacting the entire, the landscape of financial crime. The need is designing and implementing a risk-based approach using strong technology tools. On the other side, we have stringent regulatory environment. The regulators are not forgiving to banks which are lenient in adopting the various AML guidelines. Cost of compliance is increasing day by day. Today, wherever you go, whether it is a small country in Africa or an advanced country in Europe, every country is looking at this in a very, very serious way because regulators do not want to relax. We are increasingly become a global village where every country, every bank needs to adopt certain minimum standards so that the global menace is addressed together. Then other challenging thing we see is in the first wave, I'm not talking of COVID wave. So in the first wave, when in the early 2000, various compliance and AML regulations came into force, banks reacted immediately. There was a knee-jerk reaction. Some banks developed some in-house rule-based systems. Some banks procured some cheap systems because they wanted to somehow show to the regulator a tick in the box stating that they have a technology tool to address the money laundering challenges. So, but some of these systems today, they have been found to be outdated, inflexible, and they are not transparent. When regulator visits, it is very difficult to clearly showcase how a particular case got generated and what rules and what algorithms they have run, from where they source data. So these challenges need to be addressed today, which is forcing banks to look at sophisticated compliance system so that they are able to comply. So in summary, what regulators expect, 4 golden rules come to my mind, with 5th one being a supplementary one. So banks, whether it is Basel Committee recommendations or FATF or Patriot Act, they all emphasize this. Every financial institution, whether it's a bank or an exchange bureau or a small financial micro-lending institution, they need to appoint or designate a money laundering reporting officer. Some banks call as a compliance officer, head of compliance. Some banks merge this role with the risk management because risk and compliance executives. Finally, the idea is regulators want to understand who is that one person in the bank or financial institution responsible for implementing the guidance given by them properly and continuously monitors the same for its effectiveness. So the second important direction is banks need to adopt a strong policy and process. This needs to be an ongoing process. They can't simply publish some process, keep it in an almirah or a box and forget. This has to be periodically reviewed, and some of the banks have already implemented a system where they ensure that everyone in the compliance team, at least once in 6 months, confirms to the management that they have reviewed the policy and process document. The reason is they want to ensure that the knowledge is fresh. Ongoing training, again, regulator is very clear. We are in a dynamic world. Regulations and rules keep changing all the time. So continuous and ongoing training is one of the key aspects that every bank needs to follow in order to comply. And the 4th aspect is periodic audit of the AML program. The reason is, the boards of the bank need to know how their bank has, how their bank has complied with the overall requirements. Are there any gaps? Because banks too are dynamic. They keep launching new products, offering new services. So all these things need to be periodically audited to ensure there are no gaps so that they are compliant. All these things require support of technology. So that's where it's an important aspect which every bank today is focusing on. So in short, the current situation is banks have complex organizational structure, disparate IT systems. Data is lying in multiple systems, multiple places. They need to bring it together and monitor it efficiently. And the compliance team needs to have senior management buy-in. The reason being, these good quality solutions don't come cheap. So the CEO or the board of the bank, their first concern is how do I grow business? While that remains first and foremost concern of the top management, they can't afford to ignore the need to have a good compliance system because of the 4 risks which we touched upon earlier. And the regulations continue to be dynamic and changing and evolving. Today, banks are not operating just in small region. They are extending their branches across various parts of the country, various regions. And today we are seeing a lot of virtual banks getting into operation. So these banks also need to be compliant across multiple global rules and regulations as well. Not only local, the focus is local as well as global. And they need to keep pace with the evolving regulation. One such evolving regulation, as I mentioned earlier, is the gap in money laundering issues around trade finance, which is also popularly known as trade-based money laundering, where 80 to 90% of the money laundering transactions are happening today. And the regulators are trying to bring in stringent measures in the coming days. Already some of the regulators like Monetary Authority of Singapore, Hong Kong Monetary Agency, Australian regulator, some of the European regulators have already brought in, this trade-based money laundering aspect into major focus area. Then there are external forces like, the external change. Today, we are seeing a whole lot of new products entering into the market. In the post-COVID era, digital banks are becoming increasingly popular. What is happening on account of this? There is a huge explosion in data volumes. Just to give an example, so pre-COVID, I will take my own example. Pre-COVID, I used to have, say, maybe 5 to 8 transactions a month in my bank account. In the post-COVID era, most of the payments, including a $5, $10 payment, happens through digital transaction mode. So as a result, the number of transactions, if I look at my account, it is anywhere between, say, 25 to 30 or even more. That means what has happened to the bank? The volume of transactions in the bank's core banking system has grown by 2x, 3x like that. In turn, all this data need to move to transaction monitoring systems so that they can effectively monitor and realign to the behavior pattern so that they don't miss out money laundering transactions that happen in their books. So you can imagine the challenge that is coming to the technology side. So what we need to consider today, considering this pre-COVID huge volume of transactions that we are seeing and the huge growth in banking customer base, we need to look at good quality package solutions. We need to bring in, it is not just plug and play. We need to bring in right subject matter expertise so that the solution is properly configured and implemented. Especially in the areas, specialized areas like trade finance, you need to have experts who understand, can guide. Data centralization, you can't afford to have data in multiple places. That's where some of the banks today are moving towards, having a strong BI solution, established data lake, leverage big data and Hadoop, so that the data is aggregated and moves to a integrated platform for monitoring. It is no longer just a rule-based analysis, it's a pattern-based behavior detection is the key. Other important consideration today from the technology perspective is the scalability. That stems from multiple aspects. In the post-COVID era, the volume of transactions has multiplied. Plus today, what we are seeing across the globe, rapid expansion of banks and merger and acquisition of banks. Suddenly a bank with 100,000 customers acquires another bank with another 150,000 customers, and you see the total volume of customers increasing from 100,000 to 250,000 in a matter of months. Do you have a solution which is scalable to accommodate that type of sudden surge in solution? You can't afford to buy a new solution, go through another 6 months of implementation, and then meet the regulatory requirement. Regulator will not be forgiving to such requests. So hence it is important that one of the key technology aspect to be considered is you should have a good scalable solution, scalable vertically as well as horizontally. And you need to address not just local requirements, global requirements. The reason why I'm bringing global requirements is today, if you look at US Patriot Act, there is a very specific section called Section 312, which has a outreach. It is not just confined to US shores, it spreads across the globe. That means a bank, let's say in South Africa, need to be aware of the repercussions of the Section 312, because today's customers don't operate within a small, narrow geography. They tend to keep remitting funds across the globe. The business folks keep sending, importing and exporting goods. The globe is becoming, we popularly call it as a global, today we are in a global village, which means you need to understand even the impact of global requirements and be ready to meet. Going back to the Patriot Act implication, today, a bank, say in Tanzania or Kenya or Dubai, may wants to have correspondent banking relation with a bank in New York, in which case the New York bank would definitely insist on this particular bank having proper AML policy and process, proper AML technology solution. Then only the correspondent banking relation is established. Then we have these popular credit cards like Visa card and MasterCard. Today, every bank wants to have issue cards, because that is one of the well-accepted convenience facility offered by banks, whether it is a small country in Africa or in Australia or in Japan. Today, customers prefer credit cards and wallet cards, which are very convenient. So now these type of cards have tie-up with Visa and MasterCard. They in turn insist you to have a proper, robust compliance program, then only they enter into business relationship. So what it means today, any bank in any corner of the world cannot escape but to have a good technology solution in place so that they are able to address the concerns of money laundering and fraud detection, KYC, whole lot of compliance related aspects. So let me, since it is some emphasis is on technology side, let me quickly show how a typical architecture looks like. A typical bank will have data in the source systems. Obviously, the compliance technology solution will not be directly involved in the, in handling the customer data. So typically, it is done in the customer's core banking system. There may be multiple systems, and the data is extracted. It moves to a staging area, and from the staging area, whole lot of algorithms are run so that the solution generates good quality alerts or cases, and these cases go to compliance analysts who review and report to the regulator. Is this a one-time exercise? Unfortunately, no. This has to happen day in and day out. So banks do not have a choice. They need to keep running these compliance solutions as we go along. I will explain. Some are on real time 24/7, some are on daily basis, so that the regulators' expectations are met and they are able to file STRs and others reports regularly. So typically there are 6 steps to achieve this compliance goal. Identify and collect good quality data. So I keep jokingly mentioning, you may have a Mercedes car or a BMW or an ordinary car. Every car requires petrol to run. Similarly, these are all analytic solutions. So without good quality data, you can't run an analytics engine. So that's where, in fact, incidentally, we at Basel practitioners and JMR together, in our next webinar, we are planning to focus on data foundation, giving due importance to that fact as well. Without good quality data, you can't implement a good AML compliance solution. So identify the behaviors you want to monitor. Are they static? Unfortunately, no, because you have to keep monitoring the change in behaviors so that you are able to track, track, and report to the regulator on time. Then run detection algorithms, run KYC models, run screening and filtering solutions, and ultimately, some of the standard reports across the globe are currency transaction report and suspicious transaction report, which you need to file after investigation. So regulators' expectation is very clear. Establish a good technology solution and provide or file STR reports on time as per the prescribed timelines, which varies from country to country, from regulator to regulator. Some regulators prescribe 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, 15 days, depending on that, you need to adhere to. And the suspicious transaction can be a just $50 transaction or a 500,000 transaction. It does not distinguish with the amount. Anything, once you find suspicious, you don't have a choice but to file. Now let us look from a banker's perspective, where all he needs to bring in technology to address this menace of money laundering. The first thing that comes to my mind is the name screening, which is one of the essential things which every bank in the world tries to adopt. This involves, screening of customers, counterparties, screening of customer names at the time of opening of accounts, then looking at filtering of all these customer names during the funds transfer process. The reason why international, especially international funds transfer, is one of the key routes used by money launderers. Like somebody in US may want to send money to Venezuela, or may want to send to North Korea, or to some other high-risk geography. You would like to not only monitor, but you would like to stop. And how you can stop? You need, again, technology which can help you stop such transactions on a real-time basis. Then we have the key aspect, which is transaction monitoring, where you use behavior detection algorithms. Today, the technology has evolved and is moving further towards, leveraging AI and ML and neural networks so that efficiently you can monitor these behaviors and you're able to spot money laundering transactions much more efficiently, and also have reduced number of false positives. So when it comes to false positive, the reality is around 90% or more of the alerts and cases tend to be false. But the problem banks face, or the compliance analysts face, they can't avoid it. In the sense, it is part of the system. When the system identifies behavior transactions, it can be both for good as well as bad. And you have to clearly separate out the good ones from the bad ones. So that is the challenge which every compliance analyst tries to face. Again, we have newer technology tools that are coming into the market, that have come to the market, which helps in minimizing the impact of false positives. So we all know that Basel has repeatedly emphasized on KYC. Again, we have got technology solutions which can help a bank identify KYC risks at the time of onboarding. And not only it is at the time of onboarding, customers need to be monitored on an ongoing basis. That is the expectation of regulator. Like a person X at the time of onboarding, he might be a nice, thorough gentleman doing decent types of business. Say 1 year down the road, he changes his profession, becomes a dealer in diamonds. Obviously, his risk profile changes. So you should have a system which should help you to identify high-risk customers against whom you can initiate enhanced due diligence program, again, as prescribed by Basel Committee. And of course, I'm sure every regulator today is prescribing this. Today, the good news is we have technology solution which comes with certain models to identify and score the customers, where you can identify and it can flag and help you out of, say, 100,000 customers. There may be, say, 1,000 customers which are very high risk customers. The system would help you by adopting risk-based approach and guiding you to identify such high risk customers so that you are able to monitor them very closely. Finally, we need technology for prevention of frauds. That too, when it comes to frauds, we have both detection as well as prevention. While every banker would love to prevent, not all types of behavior you can spot and prevent. That's where the combination of detection and prevention comes into play. So the good news is today's systems are becoming more and more sophisticated. You can monitor transactions in fraction of second and prevent possible frauds. It is already widely being used as a fraud prevention in the area of ATM cards, internet transactions, and a whole lot of banking transactions that are happening today. So again, thanks to technology, we are able to minimize frauds, but have the frauds gone down? Unfortunately, the answer is no. In the last 18 months in the post-COVID era, with increase in digitization of banking transactions, what we are seeing today, more and more fraudsters are coming on the scene, exploiting the gaps in the digital transactions. So to address this today, we can use AI and ML based scenario analysis compared to the rule-based scenarios which we were using all the time. Other interesting technology development is graphic or visual analytics today. This really helps if somebody sends a money from, say, New York to Venezuela, Venezuela to Brazil, Brazil to, say, South Africa, South Africa to Dubai, Dubai to Tokyo. We are able to plot using this graphic analytics and try to pinpoint who all joined together to pool the money, or it can be one to many or many to many or many to one. We are able to identify and share. Another interesting technology tool I came across, which I thought I should share, is negative news search tools that are available today in the market. How it is useful? Let me give an example. Let's say Suresha, let's say I travel to London, walk into London, one of the banks in London to open my account. So the bank there would look at me, my passport and other details. Today, they may be interested in knowing more about me. Like today, we are all in social media and our names may be in various news media as well. So today we have tools and engines. Let's say if the bank does a Google search, there may be some 200 articles against my name in Google. Imagine the fate of compliance officer. Before taking a decision, can he spend time in looking at all the 200 articles and then decide, whether Suresha is good, whether we can admit him to be part of our bank's customer base, or should I reject, or should I tell him, come after a week, after reading all the 200 Google articles, I'll satisfy myself and then I will allow you to onboard. It cannot happen. Today, technology has improved vastly. And if some banker tells me that you come after a week, I may not be interested in banking with that type of bank. So what banks are doing today, they use these negative news media research tools to instantly find out against 200 articles against my name, there may be, say, 1 or 2 articles based on AI-based algorithms. A risk analyzed article may show that out of 200, there is 1 article which depicts the risky behavior of Suresh. So based only on reading that, the bank can take a quick decision whether to admit me to open my account or not. So that is the power of AI and ML today, which is helping banks to decide quickly and improve the overall efficiency and at the same time delivering good quality results. So when it comes to technology solutions, there are various ways of deploying the solution. So till few years back, banks were happy to deploy solution in a single centralized way. And some of the large global banks were doing it on a hub and spoke model. But today things are changing again. Again, it goes back to the theory that we are in a dynamic world, not a static world. Today, even the regulators are changing. So today we see GDPR and data privacy rules are gaining a lot of traction, forcing banks, if they are in a multi-country operation, they may have to keep the data in the local country, deploy the solution locally, and address the local regulatory requirements. But at the same time, the headquarters where the bank is operating, even that regulator may be insisting on, taking good cognizance of how their subsidiaries are working. So let us summarize what are the new trends we are seeing when it comes to money laundering. So real-time monitoring is gaining a lot of traction. While it's already in play in the fraud detection area, my guess is in the coming couple of years, banks as well as regulators may move towards the real-time monitoring. What it means is you are able to monitor the transactions in real time, may be able to file STRs in real time to the regulator, and maybe regulator too may increase his sophistication to block a customer transactions across multiple banks. All these things are not too distant. We can expect it. Cloud-based solutions are real. The reason why I mentioned is, as bankers, we were all very conservative. We wanted to see data sitting right in front of us in our data center and all. What the past 18 to 20 months of COVID has taught is, one can work from anywhere, customer can be anywhere. So the data can also be anywhere, can be on the cloud, and the cloud solutions are becoming economical, optimal. Banks can put solutions on cloud and reduce their burden of managing their DC and DR environments. So with the explosion of data, managing of data, data lake and big data are really helping monitor large volumes of structured and unstructured data in a much more efficient way. We have already seeing a lot of cases where some of the large global banks are using this to its advantage. Then the emphasis is more on predictive and prescriptive approach to meet the compliance needs. Another interesting development I'm seeing today is the blockchain, which is being efficiently used to control the trade-based money laundering aspects, where banks can interact very closely and prevent misuse of the trade finance route. And it's a huge subject in itself. In fact, we at BASA, BPPL and JMR, we are planning to have a focus session on TBML in the coming months. So the AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning are gaining a lot of traction because it has increased the level of automation, and building new rules is becoming very easy. And some of the challenges which banks are facing, it is becoming easy, faster and cheaper today for banks to detect the financial crimes compared to what it was a few years back. Other interesting area we are seeing is RPA, or robotic process automation. This is reducing huge amounts of manual work. Like, for example, I have seen personally some of the banks, what they have done, they adopt risk-based approach to identify alerts and cases. What do you do with the large number of low-risk cases or alerts? Deploy RPA robots so that you are able to, find out whether they are really genuine cases. If not, with a proper narrative close. In fact, I saw one interesting thing in one of the bank. They had implemented a sophisticated sampling tool on top of it to showcase to the regulator that they are not blindly machine-centric closure they are doing. They're also doing periodic sample-based approach so that the regulator's expectations are met. Other interesting thing we are seeing today, already in place, which is gaining a lot of traction, is leveraging statistical modeling tools for setting the parameters and thresholds. See, typically banks, till few years back, it used to be a judgmental approach they were adopting to define the parameter. For example, You want to monitor all transactions, say above $100,000. So regulator can come and question how you arrived $100,000, why it is not $150,000 or $50,000. You will be struggling to respond to that. But today you have got good statistical models which can help you to, based on the behavior pattern, it can help you to pinpoint what should be the model or what should be the parameter set ideally you should be using, which you can showcase to regulator and satisfy. Finally, we have what is called health checks. So the way in which you and I as individuals, we undergo periodic health checks, it is very important to subject your technology solution to health checks. The reasons are huge because, see, quite often I have seen banks set the parameter set and threshold set and forget. They say every day the solution is running, producing results, so I'm happy, and I'm filing STRs to the regulator is happy. That process need to be avoided. The reason, the customer behavior is changing. It is not exactly same as what it used to be 5 years back, 3 years back, or 1.5 years back. So you have to align your technology solution in line with the technology, in line with the changing behavior. A good health check solution, a health check program would help you to periodically reset the parameters so that you are able to generate right type of alerts or cases and file right type of STRs to the regulator. So just to summarize, before you launch a technology program to meet the compliance system, some 9 very important steps would be useful to you. First, you start at the beginning, you check whether the system is adequate, whether the system helps you to cover all the aspects of your customer transactions so that it gives a 360-degree coverage. And when the regulator comes, you're safe. You can showcase and you can get a sign-off. Second important step is whether all the requirements are properly mapped. It is very important, you can't miss out. Whether the data elements are properly mapped. You need to get all the data. Today, regulators, when they visit, they do what is called data lineage check. Personally, I have seen a couple of instances where in one of the bank, there was a change to their funds transfer system, and they forgot to make corresponding change in the extraction routine. As a result, they started pumping, for a fund transfer, there are 2 legs of transactions, originator and beneficiary would be there. Since when they changed the core system, they missed out changing the extraction routine, they started pumping only 1 leg of the transaction. The system started generating not even 5% of the normal alerts. And the compliance analyst who was looking at it was also happy because less number of cases means less work. So he happily started looking at only less number of cases, nobody bothered. To their bad luck, after 6 months when the regulator visited, they did a data lineage check and they got caught and ended up paying huge fines. There was another instance where the KYC was deployed, and at the time of deployment, bank had set the system to monitor all the accounts opened on any business day. Somewhere down the road, they made the business day to all the 7 days. They missed out tuning the system. As a result, when the regulator visited and looked at the data lineage, they found quite a few thousands of customers not monitored at the time of opening. So these are a couple of sample instances where you need to be aware, you map all the data correctly, get the data quality right so that your results are correct. Verify data accuracy, it is extremely important. Again, you can use technology tools today, plenty of tools are available, which will help you to make it as accurate as possible. Test the system thoroughly. Again, when you launch a system, a poor UAT may end up in huge costs later. So ensure that the system is thoroughly checked prior to deployment. Training. Without proper training, it's a huge challenge. I have seen, again, we are in a dynamic world. So let's say you've got a 10-member compliance team. They won't be there forever. Some may get promoted, get transferred, some may retire, some may resign and go. When the talent flows out, it is important you bring the right talent which is trained, which has a full grip of the system to do the right job. and review the parameters periodically and ensure that the production runs are accurate. Again, technology helps you to, with lots of alerts, whether, let's say if you're, uploading 1 million records to the system, if some records are rejected, you can ensure that the system alerts you so that you can investigate and take corrective steps. Have proper disaster recovery and backups done regularly, because you are obligated to regulator to store the data for a minimum period of 7 years, 10 years, like that. So in short, you need to understand your requirements properly. It requires continuous process improvement, technology improvement, while the money laundering and KYC requirements are changing because of the dynamic situation. The technology too is evolving fast. So try to implement and protect and govern your bank, keep it safe. So before opening Q&A, on behalf of JMR and BPPL, I would like to extend a very warm thanks to all the participants for joining this program. We are delighted to host this webinar and will assist you by bringing, our goal is to share some of the global best practices at every step so as to make your risk and compliance journey successful. Incidentally, this is the third in our series of 20+ sessions we have planned over the next 6 months. These sessions happen every fortnight. And our next session is on implementation of risk management solution, is on data governance. As we all discussed briefly, data is one of the key things to ensure your risk and compliance journey is safe. So we have scheduled this for Thursday, August 26, 5 p.m. India Standard Time. And we will be sharing the invites to all of you. Looking forward to see you again. For any further questions or clarifications, feel free to reach us at any of these mail IDs. So let me open to Q&A session. So I want to, leave with an anecdote. The price of light is less than the cost of darkness. So those compliance solutions cost a bit. It is worth implementing a good, right technology solution, adopt latest technology tools, so that the bank is compliant, bank is safe, bank is able to meet expectations of the regulator. Thanks, and open to Q&A.
Thank you, Mr. Suresha. Welcome all the participants. Now all the participants will be enabled to ask the questions, because you will be in a position to operate the mic and unmute it yourself. 2-3 questions have been put in the chat box today that Mr. Suresha will be answering. In the meantime, if you have any further specific questions, please feel free to ask the questions. Yeah, now the session is open for Q&A.
Yeah, before somebody comes in, let me quickly answer a couple of very interesting questions have come. Thanks for that. So useful methods or tools to prevent fraud in real time. Today, yes, there are a whole lot of real-time processing engines are available. Some are AI and ML driven. You can deploy in the market space. You have plenty of tools. It can be deployed at multiple places. While swiping of your credit card, ATM card, or internet banking transaction, it can look at the behavior pattern. It can be integrated with the geospatial data. Just to give an example, if a customer, draws his ATM card, say in New York at 10 a.m. New York, and within 30 minutes, if the same card is swiped in Moscow, system can intelligently look at the geography, distance, and prevent. Or if a card is lost, the system can look at the behavior pattern of the customer who typically, let's say, swipes his card, say max 3 times in a day, max in the last 12 months. And if somebody tries to swipe the card 4th time, it can stop. So there are various ways of looking at and implementing technology tools to minimize. While we cannot eliminate, but today technology is available to greatly help in minimizing instances of fraud. Thank you very much. Very interesting question. Then should health check should the health check of technology be done by QA team? Again, interesting question. It depends. Some large banks have separate QA teams which are deployed. They are independent. They report directly head of QA their findings, and based on that they take action. I have also seen banks inviting some external vendors where totally independent. They are not the one who have actually implemented the solution. The independent third-party vendor. Today the good news is in the marketplace you find quite a good number of consultants available for say 2 weeks, 4 weeks consulting. It is a low, you need not spend a fortune to do this. Maybe once a year or once in 18 months, identify a couple of good consultants. It can be one functional and one technical consultant. They can come and look at the entire spectrum of your technology landscape, the solution you have deployed, whether there are gaps, and whether a particular algorithm or scenario is generating huge number of alerts, how it can be minimized. So it would be very interesting and useful for the bank to have this. Then there is another interesting question. In your experience, how frequent AML scenario should be tuned? Very interesting question. So there is no one direct answer, but let me share from my own experience. I've seen some banks not tuning for years, landing into problems. So when I visited such banks, I noticed that they could have done justice maybe in about doing a tuning in about 10 to 12 months. That was still a couple of years back. But today, in the post-COVID world, where I'm seeing huge change in the customer behavior, once in 6 months would be a reasonably good time frame to look at the scenarios, look at the parameters that defined, and then keep modifying in line with the changing pattern. Then there is a question, can you recommend a solution that has most of the features you spoke about during the webinar? Maybe, I will have your name. I will send a mail because this is a very generic webinar. I should not be telling any specific product, but having said that, some of the leading solutions today, like from that of say SAS, Oracle, Actimize, Norcom, there are some leading top 4 or 5 solutions which have come up with very good quality solution. Personally, I was associated with Oracle and I have seen their solution evolving and growing by leaps and bounds. The solution has more than 100 scenarios, or one of the largest library of scenarios. Plus the best part today is we are in a dynamic world. Whatever solution you buy, you should insist on trying to learn how you can define a new scenario or a new behavior by your own team. No need to depend on the external vendor. That should be your focus while implementing the solution. Because things are changing very fast, especially in the area of fraud. Every day when I open my newspaper, I see at least half a dozen different types of frauds. In this digital world, people are being taken for a ride. Huge number of frauds are happening. Thank you. Very interesting question. Any other questions?
Hello.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, the great Suresha. It's actually nice catching up with you once again. This is Wasu First
Thanks,
Bank.
Vasu. I could guess.
Yes. That's a very great session you have just delivered, and it's an eye opener for me personally. Well, coincidentally, I happen to lead the QA team in my bank,
Okay.
in compliance department. However, in the course of the session, you mentioned some areas that the QA team should look out for during during the health check and what have you. So this leads me to a question to ask that based on your wealth of experience, what do you think is the best composition for what's the best composition for a QA team? Should it be strictly a compliance team, or it should go outside of compliance? That is on one hand. Then on the RPA, recently, my bank, we also try to go through this route. However, I want to believe that maybe likely due to dearth of expertise on our part, in the immediate, I don't see how this can really assist us in the area of alert management, especially with the huge volume of alert we do get as a bank. The kind of review we get um, from the users is not rich, or yeah, the kind of review we get, we cannot say beat our chest and say okay, it is adequate enough for us to now say okay, a system can take a decision based on that to uh, take a closure decision on our behalf. So let me just rest here for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vasu. Very good question. There are 3 parts to it. Let me cover one by one. Your first question was on the QA part, whether you should approach your internal QA team to come over and look at your entire compliance program and the technology solution and provide their feedback. So it's an interesting question. The challenges is, the typical QA teams in my own banking days, what I have seen is the expertise you want by way of understanding of the compliance requirements and the compliance technology requirements may not be there. That is a risk which you run with your internal compliance, internal QA team. It is like, you need a doctor to come and, diagnose and prescribe. But the doctor should be a typical physician. You can't have a veterinary doctor coming and prescribing, on a lighter note, not to undermine the QA team. The reason is, like whoever comes from your QA team should understand what are the various types of behaviors or money laundering behaviors that are there, and how the bank is able to address, what challenges bank is facing. That is on the functional part. On the technology part, if that person is aware of the various technology tools already deployed in the bank, when it was deployed, how it was deployed, whether it is properly configured, and whether the parameter set was periodically reviewed. If he is able to check all those things, then he is a fit. Otherwise, again, you can find such expertise available. You can bring them for a brief few weeks of investigation. In fact, personally, I had the opportunity of being invited by a large bank in Kuwait, where the bank was facing regulatory inspection. Already, regulator had notified in another 6 weeks they are going to come. They wanted a rapid 2 weeks analysis to see what are all the gaps and quickly remedy and rectify, so that when the regulator comes, they are in a decent shape. So we try to do that. So why I'm telling you is, today such expertise is available and it is not expensive. You need not go to maybe Big Four and pay hundreds of thousands. In fact, large banks do that. They engage, well-trained, experienced consultants from Big Four to do this sort of check. And I've also seen some of the large banks engaging, Big Four for periodic audit of the compliance program and include the technology part as part of that. So thereby they cover that as well. So that is one way of handling. So next you had a question on how to efficiently do data management. Very interesting question. Today, banks are facing huge amounts of data, and whether good quality data is available, that holds the key to your success of your entire compliance technology program. So what regulator does when they visit today, they make it a point to look at the data lineage part to see that, let's say you have got 5 million records, whether all the 5 million records are properly loaded. If there is a rejection of some records, whether that is investigated and addressed. Whether all these records were processed by the behavior detection algorithms, whether something is missed out. If something is missed out, whether it is properly investigated and a logical conclusion was taken. So these are things which you have to do. Again, there are experts who can come and guide. In fact, some part of it we will try to address in our next session on data governance, how to address some of these challenges as well. Other very important question you had was, how do we address large number of alerts? Let me tell you, almost 99 out of 100 compliance executives I have interacted, they cry on this aspect because there are over 90% of alerts and cases turn out to be false positive. Unfortunately, there are no shortcuts, but one solution which some of the banks have successfully adopted is using RPA quite effectively and using risk-based approach so that the focus of the small compliance team is towards targeted at high-risk alerts and cases. So you may be wondering whether the regulator is fine with that sort of an approach. Ideally, a regulator wants you to investigate 100% of alerts. That is the ideal situation. That is on theory and in paper. But in reality, regulator also understands that if you are having, say, 2,000 alerts every day, you need an army of, say, some 50 people or 25 people to investigate all those 2,000 alerts every day, which is very difficult. Hence, if you adopt a risk-based approach, focus on targeted high-risk cases and alerts, you will be able to convince the regulator on the approach you have taken. See, today when the regulator comes, you can convince, even the regulator wants to understand your intent in addressing all these cases. Suppose if you are casual and say 2,000 alerts are generated, you pick up some 5, address and be happy. Regulator may take a stick and beat you with fine. On the other hand, you have a proper RBA-based approach and you are perhaps using RPA and other technology tools to clearly pinpoint with, say, 99% accuracy the serious cases, and if you are reporting it to regulator on time, regulator would be fine in accepting your case. Thank you. Very interesting questions, Vasu. Any other questions?
I think Mr. Suresha has explained it with the crystal clear, this one, all the questions as well as this one. And let me remind you, gentlemen, that you may have your organization specific questions also, which you may like to ask because this is a general webinar. In case you have such questions, you are welcome to visit our website where we have separate link where you can put in the hurdles which you face in your organization. Definitely, we will get back to you with a solution which may be appropriate for your organization. You are welcome to visit the websites of both JMR Infotech as well as Basel practitioners. Thank you very much for joining. Please do not forget the next in the series of our webinar is scheduled for 26th August. That is Thursday at the same time, 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time, which will be on the most important topic of data governance. Okay, we have our expert already lined up. He is preparing himself to face your questions. Please challenge our expert and take advantage of the knowledge series. Thank you very much from both Basel practitioners and JMR Infect. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now. We'll be in touch.